Yo, what's going on, y'all? Hope everyone's good. Today I want to talk about background vocals. And I'm going to give you 4 things to do to get something like this.
All I really want's a little something better.
Sounding like this.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever.
Let's just dive into it. So I've got the song opened up. Let's just take a listen to some context here, what we're working with already.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever.
Cool. So they could do some work. They're just not sitting the right way. They're not cutting through. It's a little muddy. We want to add some clarity, and we want to really make these feel like a standout part. So the first thing that you want to do, number 1, is time and tune everything perfectly to the lead. I've already gone ahead and manually shifted all of the timing in this and printed it out. You really want to focus your attention on just lining these waveforms up as perfectly as you can. It doesn't have to be completely exact, but as close to that as possibly you can get to, the better. Particularly on consonant sounds like S or any other hard thing that creates like a plosive sound in the microphone. Because when we go to compress these later, all of that sort of stuff is going to pop out and feel kind of rhythmically wrong. So after that's done, you want to make sure everything is in tune. And ideally you want to do this in the recording process, but things slip through the cracks. I throw a kind of blanket auto tune on everything. But if things are still cutting through, or if I still am noticing some mistakes, I'll go ahead and just throw a Melodyne on there and pick up anything that auto-tune doesn't catch. We want things super smooth and perfect with the lead as we possibly can. It's going to help a lot later. Okay, and then the second, a little less straightforward thing is while you're leveling these things out, to figure out what space you need to carve out with each voice. And so what I mean by that, each one of these voices occupies a certain frequency spectrum. A higher harmony might have a more bright sound, a lower harmony, the opposite, darker. And so when these things start to gel together, they start to stack on each other in a pleasing way. That's why harmonies sound great. But they can also introduce some problems. They introduce some muddiness or too much brightness. So you want to identify which voices are occupying what part of the frequency spectrum. So for example, let's take this high harmony.
All I really want's a little something better.
That's offering a lot of mid-range, not too much low. It's a little tinny up there too. So what I've done is I've added this parametric EQ and rolled off a lot of that not so important information and warmed it up a little bit with this. Without it,
All I really want's a little something better. All I really want's a little something better.
not a bunch of change. But if we disable this,
All I really want's a little.
we notice there's a bunch of low-end information that isn't really useful to this sound. All it's going to do is add some subconscious low-end that's just going to clutter things up and stack up over time. Because what I have this many of these, and they're all going to stack up. Eventually that's going to add up and introduce a lot of mud into things that we don't want. So I just went ahead and cut that stuff out. On the flip side, we have a lower harmony here. All I really want, little something better, here and then we gone. Ugh, sounds terrible, pitch-wise. But this we didn't have much high information, so I boosted this a little bit. There's still not much going on underneath 100 hertz in some of this stuff. I really want to create space for some of the low end in the track itself. A lot of that's going to be stacking on these two. So yeah, I kind of applied a curve like this to start to carve out space like that. Lastly, we have these normal stacks here.
All I really want's little something better.
And I rolled off some of that low too to let the low octave underneath take that space for it. And I brightened it a little bit. And you kind of want to use your ear and play around with that stuff. You want to play them all with each other.
All I really want's
See what you can do to make sure that your ear can find each harmony. What happens if you don't carve out space for these things is they start to get cluttered. And you want them to feel very cohesive, but at the same time, you want your ear to be able to pick out each individual voice. So once you've carved things out and it's feeling a little more clear, we want to move on to the third thing. And that's, we want to treat them and glue them together. And I'm going to do this by adding them to a subgroup that I made on a preset that I use for vocals typically like this. I'm going to call it, and I've called it gang sub. I call these gang vox. And there's a few things that I want to accomplish with this subgroup, and I want to affect them all at the same time. I want to catch some of the potential peaks that are happening. I want to add some subtle coloration. I want to compress them more, and I want to reduce the amount of dynamics they have in order to get them punchier. And then I want to control some of that color that I added before and introduce some more dynamic version of it. And let me explain what I mean by all of that. So first, I have a channel strip that is just going to lightly kiss all of these backgrounds at the same time. Anything that might be poking out subtly, I want to grab here, and I want a slow attack on it. I want a fast release. I don't want a lot of compression happening. I don't want to squish it. I just want to grab little things.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone.
And you notice it's just kissing. It's not doing a whole bunch. I have a little bit of makeup gain happening just to add a little bit of volume, but it's not really doing a whole bunch. I just want to grab the peaks of that. The next thing I want to do is color this thing a little bit. And I like the Pro Q3 from FabFilter because it has mid-side EQ. I can affect the middle of the image if it was mono. I can affect the sides separately. I don't have to affect the entire thing. I can also make these dynamic to where they're only engaging at certain levels. And so I like to use the side EQ on backgrounds and boost some of these highs here. So on the left and right side, I get a little bit of sparkle. It gives the ear an illusion of wideness. And to contrast that, I like to scoop out some of these middle frequencies in the center because our bass is probably living there. It's definitely living there. And I don't want to gum up that space with a bunch of mud. So I dynamically take out some of that area. Let's check out what that sounds like. Without.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone.
With.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone.
Super subtle stuff. Let's crank this just so you can hear it.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something.
So you notice it's happening in the left and right sides. If you're on monitors or headphones, you can notice it more. But that's what I'm doing. That's the first stage of coloration that I want to have. The next thing I want to do is limit the dynamics with the compressor and really get them to start to gel together and stand out and cut through. Let's check it out with.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better.
Now it's a little bit aggressive for me. I actually might dial back on the attack a little bit. It feels like it's squishing a little bit too early.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's.
That's pretty nice. And so then the last thing that I want to do after I've got this cutting through a little bit more is I want to add some more color control and introduce a little bit more dynamically. And I do that with a multiband compressor. And what I like to use this for is really getting some control over the mid-range, like we've already carved some space out for, and then just introducing some dynamic brightness to it. So let's check it out without it.
All I really want's a little something better.
And with.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone.
So we're just crispy now. Nothing feels like it's poking out too much. That warmth isn't feeling muddy. I don't feel like it's going to be built up too hard over time with this. And it feels like I'm going to have enough space for the lead to cut through now. Some final little tweaks for coloration control. I like to use this de-esser, and of course grabs the S sounds.
All I really want's a little something better.
Yeah, all those something better is gonna really bother me. So I just want to control those a little bit. Sometimes you can't grab them with the de-esser, and it's easier to just go in and find them and do some automation. But this seems to be working pretty well. The final step in treating it, I want to throw it into a reverb space. And the important thing to think about with this and backgrounds in general, when there's a bunch going on, you don't want your decay time here to step on itself. And what I mean by that, you don't want the decay to be kind of building upon itself. You want the reverb to stop by the time the vocal gets introduced again. Because what will end up happening is you get a bunch of buildup of mud and warmth when it's stretched too far. So I tried to aim for a release time in this reverb to avoid that issue. Let's check it out.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone.
See, because I want to avoid something like this.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want.
It's just carrying on still for way too long. I don't want to introduce something like that because there's so much other stuff going on in the track. I just know that it's going to muddy it up. And with a gang vocal like this, a bunch of unison stacks, I kind of want that sort of bar concert live sort of feel happening. So a smaller size chamber or hall is going to accomplish that for you. So the last thing to do would be to check it out with the lead and make some final adjustments if we want.
All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever. All I really want's a little something better. Here and then we gone. Nothing is forever.
One more bonus tweak. I do feel like sometimes these step on the lead sometimes. So something I like to do is actually sidechain my backgrounds to the lead. So when I send my lead vocal signal, I send it to that background subgroup. and it triggers, where am I at? It triggers this compressor here. So my lead vocal is actually suppressing the backgrounds, and it kind of makes it feel like everything is hugging now. And it creates a little more subtle space. You can get even more detailed with the sidechaining vocal too. You can actually sidechain it to a multiband, so you're only ducking mid frequencies or high frequencies, whatever might be competing with your lead vocal. Yeah, there's a lot of different details you can get into with that, but yeah, those are really the 4 big things that I like to focus on. To recap: time and tune them, carve out some space, add them to a bus, glue them and affect them together with some coloration and compression and dynamic EQ that is making space for everything. And you should have a set of background vocals that are really punching and sticking out. If you like this video, you know the drill. Just like, comment, subscribe, all of that. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help. Have a good one.